First of all, hope you all had a happy holiday season. This is JC from ZVJ Media, and we are going to start posting every day, trying to make this dream work, trying to chase our goals. Is the SEC Media preseason poll that I have in front of me. We've got the standings that the media picked in the preseason, along with their picks for Player of the Year and All SEC First Team. Let's get this out of the way. This is the most stacked conference I think we've seen in years. Many have predicted, including us, that the SEC is going to break the record for most teams ever in the NCAA tournament. They're going to beat that 11 mark. I just have a feeling. And even the bottom of some of these teams that may not make the tournament, are still good enough to make the tournament in my eyes. These top teams have a lot of talent. There are a lot of gritty teams on here. And the SEC is taking over college basketball. So SEC fans, congratulations. I'm even becoming a fan of some of these SEC teams as we go along. So this is the SEC preseason poll. Obviously, we have the hindsight of college non-conference games that have been played. So we're kind of cheating. However, it's still cool to try to fix these preseason picks, try to make our own picks, see if they're better or worse than the preseason picks by the experts. So they have Alabama first, Auburn second, Tennessee, Arkansas, A&M, Florida, Texas here, Kentucky, then Ole Miss, and that's where they have the cutoff of who will make the NCAA tournament. And then these teams from 10 to 16, 17, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 is all these other teams with Oklahoma and Vanderbilt bringing up the rear. They also have Mark Sears winning the SEC Player of the Year with Janai Broome, Walter Clayton Jr., Wade Taylor, and Zakai Ziegler rounding out the list of all SEC first-teamers. Today, we're going to try and predict what will happen in SEC conference play before the SEC season starts. You may be seeing this in the first game of the conference season, so maybe Auburn lost to, I don't know who they're playing, but maybe they lost LSU, and this list will go haywire, just like the Big 12 list is looking like it's going to go. However, these are just our opinions. Please don't hold it against us. We would love to have a conversation, though, in the comments below. The first team that we have predicted to finish first is, no surprise, Auburn. The Auburn Tigers, led by Bruce Pearl, are pretty good. They're a really good basketball team. Their non-conference schedule, I think, earned them this number one spot. And I think they'll roll through the SEC. They'll definitely lose a couple of games, one or two along the road. But that's just the SEC. It's going to be a gauntlet, night in and night out, pretty much. But the reason why I think they're going to win is just because of Janai Broome. Janai Broome is phenomenal. He'll definitely be there at the end when we make our first-team SEC predictions. Probably going to be a first-team All-American as well if he keeps it up. He is phenomenal. Auburn, I'm looking here. They're number one in KenPom, number one in offensive rating, 14 in defensive rating, which I think that can get a little higher just because of how athletic they are and how hard they play. But winning the Maui Invitational and blowing out some of these Big Ten teams, very impressive. The Auburn Tigers are very impressive. I love Denver Jones, Chad Baker-Mazara, and Dylan Cardwell are just phenomenal role players who play very well with Janai Broome. Broome is a great leader. And Auburn, yeah, love your team this year. And I think you guys could go very far. Number two, this is a team that, I think could make a run for number one. I have four teams that I think could make a run for number one. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if this team was the number one team at the end of the year. Roll Tide, Alabama. Look, Mark Sears is a stud. Have to put it out there. I've seen a lot of Mark Sears hate because he hasn't had the best non-conference stats. But Mark Sears is incredible. He's going to pick it up. He's going to be that All-American that they predicted he would be. Losing Latrell Wrightsell, stinks for sure. But they have two guys into the fold now, and Chris Youngblood from South Florida and Houston Millett from Pepperdine, who can kind of take his place in the rotation. Aiden Holloway is playing much better than he was at Auburn, which is weird, transferring to a rival school. But hey, who am I to judge? And Grant Nelson, Dakota Durant, played big minutes last year for that Final Four team. I love Nate Oates. I love their system. And I love their athleticism. They're not a very good defensive team, which, I think defense will travel in the SEC just because there's so many good scoring teams. But I think, as we saw in the Houston game, they have the athleticism to hang with any team on the defensive end. And even Mark Sears is playing much more physical defense than he has in the past. So Alabama, I think you can pencil them in for a top 3 spot. Another team you can pencil in for a top 3 spot, top 4 maybe, Kentucky. I love this Kentucky team. Shout out to Jackson Higgison if you're watching this. Hope you're doing well, man. Your team is sensational. In the past, I wasn't a big UK guy just because, they're always really good. Like the Anthony Davis team in 2012 won it all. They were just a bunch of freshmen that came onto the scene and dominated year after year. Calipari was kind of unlikable at the time, and my thoughts have changed on him since. But they have a huge fan base that really travels, and I don't know, that kind of irked me for some reason. But I love this Mark Pope coach team. I was a little unsure about them in the beginning just because you literally brought 12 new guys, 12 new scholarship players, and asked them to gel together during the offseason. And they fit perfectly. Whether this is coaching or just the players being really good, I think it's a combination of the two. One guy that I need to shout out is Otega Owe. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. I would take him in the first round if I was an NBA drafter. I'm not sure if they will, but he's been playing like it. He's a very solid wing defender who is extraordinarily strong, can take the ball to the rack at will, and fits well in the Mark Pope system. Lamont Butler has been my favorite point guard for a couple of years now. Just an incredible defender, won the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year last year, and has really stepped up offensively this year as kind of the leader point guard of this team. Andrew Carr and Imani Williams are two underrated studs down low. And, of course, Jackson Robinson and Kobe Brea can shoot the three really well. This team is not ranked super highly in KenPom. KenPom has them 18th because of a 90 defensive rating. Look, that's kind of true. They're not the best defensive team. There's been no Mark Pope team that has been incredible defensively. But they have guys that can play defense like Butler and Owe. So I think they'll be okay. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the league. Wouldn't be surprised if they win a national championship. That's how deep the SEC is. Number 4. This could get controversial. The Tennessee Volunteers, we have at number 4. Look, we've said some controversial things on the channel, Zach and I, about Tennessee. The Tennessee fans may not like. First of all, we love Tennessee. We think Rick Barnes is a great coach. You guys have sweet uniforms, a really nice arena. And that Dalton Connect team last year was one of my favorites. I was really cheering for them to go all the way before they got bounced by Edey. But I just don't think that Lanier, as spectacular as Lanier has been, I'm going to give Lanier his flowers toward the end of this video, but I think Lanier is not connect. And if they want him to play the connect role of their leading scorer, I just don't think that's going to work very well. Zakai Siegler, in my opinion, watching him play, I love Zakai Siegler, has not taken a step forward that I think he was projected to as a projected first team All SEC player, projected All American. He hasn't taken that step forward, turns the ball over a little too much, and doesn't shoot the ball extremely well from three. Igor Milicic can get a bucket, but I'm still a little unsure of his game. They're tremendous defensively, as all Rick Barnes teams are, but I could just see them getting tripped up a little bit. Their offense has been very smooth. Yeah, they're 20th in KenPom, and I could just see them struggling to get points at times. And their defense is going to play really well, but on the other side of the token, teams are going to score against Tennessee just because the SEC is so good offensively. So I'm not discounting Tennessee. I just think that they're a little bit overhyped. But number 4, still really good. Still going to make it. Might make it deep in the tournament, So don't take that as a diss, but Florida sitting at number 5. I have Florida a little bit lower than Zach did. Zach had them at 3. I had them at 7. But number 5, I think, is fair for Florida. This team has 3 really good guards, Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, and Will Richard, who are just really big physical guards that can shoot. They kind of lack that marquee win. They don't have a bunch of big time wins on their resume. Didn't play the hardest non-conference schedule. In fact, their strength of schedule here is very low compared to the other teams that are in the top. Kind of similar to Tennessee, not in the top 100 in terms of strength of schedule, but number 3 offensive rating. Have a great offense, and they're big men who I questioned and still do question. Still, I'm unsure how they're going to hang up against the Brooms of the world, and some of the other bigs in the SEC they're going to face. Although it is a guard-heavy league, but they'll face some bigs. I think they can do their job. Still not convinced this team is a team that can go all the way or win the SEC, but I could see them win games based on the fact that Walter Clayton Jr. and Elijah Martin are a insanely good duo. My Aggies. Look, if you've watched the video, watch the shorts, I love this team. This team, although there's not a lot of high-end talent there, there's nobody on Texas A&M that you look at and be like, oh man, this guy is, Paul George level, of talent. Their game is really smooth. They're a little bit rough around the edges, but I think that really works in this SEC league and beyond. You've seen them play teams like Purdue, where they've won games just based on their physicality, their ability to offensive rebound, and their ability to fly around on defense. They're number 5 in the nation defensively. Guys like Pharrell Payne and Solomon Washington are insane offensive rebounders that can score extra possessions anytime. And Zurich Phelps and Wade Taylor, the 4th, although a bit inefficient from the field, are guys that can get you a bucket at any time. And so I'm comfortable with Texas A&M. I would put them a little bit higher, but here at 6, I think it's definitely fair. They're going to lose a couple games just because of the non-high-end talent, but they'll also win games just because of their physicality. So I think it'll even out. And this is a team that'll go far in the tournament. Just watch. This is a team that Zach and I kind of disagreed with. I don't know a lot about this Mississippi State team, but metrics love them. Top 30 in offense and defense. They've got a guy who I really like despite not watching him play a lot, in Josh Hubbard, a little guard who can shoot the lights out. Not a lot of big brand name guys. Not a big brand name coach either in Chris Jans, but Chris Jans is a phenomenal coach. Mississippi State, they really care about their basketball down there and in Starkville. And I could see this team going to the tournament and kind of being a sleeper in the SEC. Feels if nobody's really talking about Mississippi State. Preseason poll picked them to miss the tournament. I think they'll exceed expectations here. Ole Miss. This is a team who I really love. Really love this Ole Miss team just because they're, no pun intended, old. The guys like Matthew Morrell, Juju Murray, Sean Padula, Malik Dia, Brakefield. These are guys that have been here for a long time. And I also like second chances, Chris Beard and Mark Adams obviously did not end well at their previous schools. But I like how they're getting a second chance at Ole Miss to kind of have this older roster, a team that's very athletic. I think they're not the most talented team in the world. So I think that, putting them kind of in the middle of the pack as far as the SEC is definitely fair. But once they get to this tournament, and even in the SEC, I could see them just blitzing a team, just like kind of like they blitzed Illinois in the exhibition, just because of their athleticism and their experience in playing college basketball. This is a team that I think will make the tournament, a team that I've been very impressed with. I'm really a fan of some of the guys on this Oklahoma team. Jeremiah Fears is phenomenal. I love his game. He's just a teenager, like a young teenager who reclassified and high prospect going to Oklahoma. Porter Moser, I was not always sold on him as the Oklahoma coach, but they're undefeated right now. And although Ken Palm doesn't really love them too much, let's see. Yeah, they're pretty down there. They're 45th in Ken Palm. They don't really like them at all, actually. Undefeated is undefeated. And although they haven't beaten crazy good competition, it's been good. Yeah, Oklahoma is a good team. And I think they'll make the tournament. Could see them getting bounced first round. I think this team's a little overhyped, but definitely not the 15th that they're predicted to be. They're much better than that. Arkansas. Look, a lot of people that I talk to really hate Arkansas. Maybe they've given me enough reasons to hate them, but maybe I'm just looking through maroon-colored glasses. I'll become an Arkansas fan this year just because of Calipari. I like guys that, were once at the top, but now everybody's saying, they fell off. I just think that makes for a cool story. You kind of get to see someone's character when they're getting bashed by the media every day. They're saying, you've lost your stuff. You've lost everything. You're not the coach you used to be. You're not the national championship winner that you used to be. And I think that Calipari will embrace this underdog role with this team. Obviously, they have some holes. Big Z and their bigs have not been as expected. John L. Davis is not the number one portal player that they thought they got. But Adu Thiero has broken out, and I didn't see that coming. So, and the biggest kind of critique of Calipari in the past was that, he didn't really defend very well, didn't defend at a high level. But this Arkansas team is playing pretty good defense. They're number 24. Obviously, some room to grow. Ken Palm also really doesn't like them at all. But I think this Arkansas team, despite not having a great strength of schedule, I think that they can win enough games to kind of claw themselves into the NCAA tournament picture at the end of the day. And I think this is a sleeper team that can win a few games in the SEC tournament. This is the final kind of consensus team that we reached. I'm not as high on them as Zach is, but we both believe that the Bulldogs will finally make an NCAA tournament appearance. It's been a little while, but they have guys like Austin Newell and Silas Demery Jr. That we think can kind of lift them up. Mike White is a good coach, and I could see Georgia kind of, they've beat St. John's this year, had played Marquette pretty close at Marquette. I think that they can kind of make a run for maybe the middle of the pack of the SEC. They're normally toward the bottom. But I think they can make a run at kind of that 9 or 10 seed in both the SEC and the NCAA tournament. I think they can do it. And that kind of concludes these teams that we think will make the tournament. We chose 13. We chose 11. I think. I'm not sure how many we chose. But we have 5 teams that are kind of fringe, 3 teams that are fringe teams, and 2 teams that really aren't good at all. These 3 teams, I wouldn't blame you if you said, they're definitely making the NCAA tournament. I think maybe one of these teams will slide in. You can kind of pick your poison here. If anything, I think it'll be Texas just because they're top-end talent with Trey Johnson. Tremont Mark has been good in the past. They got some scrappy guys like Kendall Weaver, Jason Kent, and Julian Larry. I just don't really trust Rodney Terry. And that's kind of simple as that. And they just I don't know. Trey Johnson's a stud, but they just don't really have the it factor, Kind of similar with Missouri. Had that big win against Kansas. I like Dennis Gates as a coach. But when Mark Mitchell is your best player, I just don't think. Obviously, it's not just the best player, it's the depth. And they have okay depth, but they have some tough losses, on that schedule as well. And I just don't think they can hang in this SEC. And then Vanderbilt. Zach has been screaming their praises a long time. And I get it. Vanderbilt is definitely on the rise. And I respect the heck out of Vanderbilt trying to, claw in football and in basketball into the SEC picture. Just don't think this is their year, losing to 11 by Drake. Not by Drake, to Drake in that tournament. Would have liked to see them win that game. Don't really have big wins. Their biggest win, I think, is against TCU. So, yeah, I'm just not sold on Vanderbilt. But, hey, hopefully they can surprise some people. LSU and South Carolina are both very bad. Not much to say. South Carolina, Lamont Paris was a great story last year, but they're just not very good. And then LSU, it's going to take a little while. I fear. Janai Broome, you probably expected it, but he is our SEC Player of the Year. Gonna be him, I think. Obviously, there are 4 other guys and more other guys that can challenge for this award, but I think Janai, as long as he kind of stays the course, is going to be SEC Player of the Year and perhaps the Wooden Player of the Year. I think he's the best player in college basketball right now. He's just so technically skilled. Whenever I watch him, it just feels as if not many people can compete with Zach Edey as far as finishing around the rim. just because he was 7'4" and had a really good touch and really good post moves. But Janai Broome has such a soft touch around the rim. Like, it seems as if every layup, every post move, every time he gets into the post, he's making a layup. Like, and he's just kissing it off the glass, really soft. And yeah, Janai Broome, also a great defender. That kind of anchors that Auburn defense. 4 guys, talked about all 4. Otega Owe, Walter Clayton Jr., Mark Sears, Chaz Lanier. 4 guard, maybe forward in the case of Otega Owe and maybe Chaz Lanier. But these are 4 guys that 4 transfers. 4 transfers that weren't always the greatest players at their former schools. Weren't always regarded as All-Americans. Similar with Janai. But I think the SEC is a great story of how the come-up is real in college basketball. You can go from a guy like Mark Sears, a guy who was playing behind Jason Preston at Ohio. You can go Chaz Lanier, a guy who in his junior year at North Florida averaged 4 points a game. Walter Clayton was playing for Rick Pitino at Iona as a sophomore. Owe was a guy who nobody really saw coming. Played for Oklahoma last year and didn't make the tournament. These are guys that, were under-recruited, undervalued, but they've come down south and they're ready to make their mark. And that's kind of why I love this SEC conference. These 4 and then a few more are just great players. I think are going to have a great season. But who do you think will have a great season? Which team do you think will win the SEC? You can drop your predictions below. We would love to have a conversation with you about this. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you, and we will see you tomorrow.